Hey guys, Justin here. Thank you to all of our subscribers who give us video requests. It means a lot. Matt and I are very appreciative of the video suggestions that we've been given. Today's video comes from two subs asking the same question at almost the same time. Today's question is, how do we make spaceship combat in our respective RPGs feel more intense and exciting? Well, I'm going to try to tackle that question today with three simple guidelines. If you're interested in more videos like this, or RPG videos in general, hit that subscribe button and get ready for some awesome space combat. Because there are so many different games that involve space combat, I'm going to give you a system-agnostic three-step guide to apply on top of how your actual RPG works. This isn't a video about making space combat more, quote, realistic, but if you want to hear my approach to that, let us know. Most of my knowledge is with Traveler, and I've played one space battle in a Starfinder Society game. However, friend of the show and Starfinder extraordinaire Chris ran that Starfinder space combat so flawlessly and white-knuckled that I knew I had to borrow some of his ideas. These guidelines I'll be giving you aren't all mine. They're a combination of my own techniques, friend of the show Chris's techniques, and Matt and mine's actual mutual friend Will, who has been running Traveler since its inception. The very first and dare I say most important part of space combat is don't do it if there's no danger. Like seriously, why do it if the PCs have no danger towards them? So this leads me to my very first technique to make space combat more exciting. Make it dangerous. You are flying in a tin can in the middle of a vacuum. This is scary. Yeah, shields, yeah, armor, plating, I get it, but a good space combat has extreme danger to it. Let me give you a pop culture example and then an RPG example. In Star Trek, at least in the earlier series, you see a shot of the bridge and a slight camera shake, and one of the officers yells, "Sir, the shields are down to 80%!" And the captain goes, "My God," in a low voice. Yet they always seem to make it out alive, and the lights maybe flicker, but that's about it. Now, in the Expanse, the Rosinante is attacking Thoth Station, and the stealth ship fights back. Those point defense cannons are ripping and tearing through the Roci like paper. The crew has to wear vac suits because they know that they're going to get penetrated by enemy fire. Now, I think you already know which of these examples I prefer in my space battles. And let me give you some RPG experience to back it up. Matt and I played in a Traveler game that involved a space combat and it was relatively boring. It's hard to get out of the mindset of hit points, as you need to keep track of your ship's hull to see when really bad things start to happen. But it was basically our crew saying what they did, and the referee telling us what the enemy does, and it turned into a game of hit for 10 damage, and the enemy misses. Now, how Chris and I run space combat is very different, and will as well. Hit points are there because they are needed to be tracked. You do need an objective tracking for your hit points, but they're more of an afterthought. My current Traveler players are graced with me describing how the enemy missiles slam into the hull plating of their far trader, rocking the ship mildly off its course as multiple incoming missiles all hit the same relative space. Air ducts briefly turn off and kick back on as the shots didn't pen, but vibrated the ship violently. You can see through the external cams that the port side has a chunk of armored plating missing. Mark 10 points off your ship's armor. The big issue is, space combats can turn into a game of Battleship if all you care about is hit or misses. You really need to describe what's going on and make the battle feel dangerous. Yes, every time something hits or misses, that amount of explanation and detail that I give, it needs to keep happening. Even if the shots aren't penetration shots and nothing rolled on the critical hit charts, make the players know they're an extremely vulnerable tin can. Now, the second general rule I like in my RPG space combat is leaving your hero ship syndrome at the door. What I mean by that is a PC ship shouldn't do everything and it shouldn't have plot armor. Look at the Millenium Falcon. Its FTL drives are fast, its sublight engines are fast, it can carry cargo, and it can hold its own in a dogfight and against large Imperial ships. In just about every situation, the Millennium Falcon is thrust into, it has an ace up its sleeve to get out or to fight back. Compare that to the players in my Traveler game with a Far Trader. Now, the Far Trader is a merchant ship. Some cargo tonnage was sacrificed to have 2 small hardpoints placed on the ship to defend itself. The PCs have to shut down certain systems just to have enough power to use those guns. The guns aren't even that powerful, and the PCs found that out the hard way when attacking an enemy frigate. They were lucky it was just a frigate because the enemy uses frigates the way they're intended to, as a screen against fighters. The frigate only had point defense kinetic weaponry, but it was very well armored. It's designed to make like a stalwart defense in a larger fleet. The PC's Far Trader was not designed to fight ships head on. So the Far Trader does one thing well, and that's transport cargo. So in the end, as the game master, don't be afraid to exploit the weaknesses of the PCs and even the NPC enemies' ships. The point defense slugs penned the Far Trader and blew a hole in the crew cabin area. Luckily, the rounds slamming through the ship didn't do anything else, but it required a lot of work to fix. Finally, our last general guideline has 2 parts. The first part is keep from being flashy. In Battlestar Galactica, the 2000s remake, during the face-off of Battlestar, Pegasus, and Galactica, most viewers were on the edge of their seats. The battle, which I will label it a battle, was very intense, yet no shots were even fired. Both ships were brought to bear and launched their Viper fighters, and the whole battle was just a standoff of just back and forth, back and forth. This isn't something to do every battle, the standoff that was, but it wasn't flashy. There wasn't any extreme maneuvers being pulled and large ships exploding. It was simple, gritty, and made you hold your breath. I suggest doing this exact thing in your RPG space battles. The Starfinder game had our ship continually play cat and mouse with the enemy ship akin to the Wrath of Khan, and we couldn't get into each other's firing arcs. Or, if we were, they weren't good firing solutions. It wasn't flashy by anyone's standards, but it was intense, as we kept trying to outmaneuver each other, and once the enemy got into our firing arcs, it was done in about 2 rounds. Nothing crazy happened, but that's why it was such a nail-biter. The anticipation and slow build-up to your ship getting rocked by giant lasers sometimes is more terrifying than the lasers actually hitting your ship. The second point to the guideline is bigger is not usually better. 2 to 5 ships fighting is enough to deliver the feeling of an intense battle. I understand that people might want to relive the battle over Coruscant from the Revenge of the Sith, but too many ships and too many things going on has a better chance of taking your players out of the battle and not getting more invested. Needing to know where 2 ships are instead of 20 is easier on the players and on the game master alike. If you want a huge space battle, play Star Wars Armada or Battlefield Gothic, not an RPG. Smaller, intimate skirmishes are more important and drive home your story you're trying to tell. I will say, however, that if you do insist on having a large space battle, keep your players in one very narrow section of the battle. Just like in our large-scale warfare video, the PCs need clear-cut objectives to help them stay focused and not overwhelmed. An overwhelmed PC is an overwhelmed player. An overwhelmed player is a checked-out player. So thank you guys for watching. Do you agree with my 3 rules for a better space combat in your RPGs? Do you have more guidelines that you use? Do you have less guidelines? Let us know in the comments below and drop us a like if you enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for more RPG content. Thanks for watching, and game on.